probably the biggest source of pollution, waste of human material resources, human suffering, environmental damage today is the arms race, continuous warfare, especially when most of this warfare is concerned around control of possibly fossil fuels primarily.
Absolutely. I think you hit on it very smartly at the end there. One of the beautiful things that will happen if we make this transition off of fossil fuel quickly to solar power and wind power and things is the replacement of centralized. Think about why the world looks the way it does. One of its main features is the fact that we rely on an energy source that only exists in a few places, very concentrated in those places, and has given rise to huge pools of not just carbon, but of wealth and of power that comes with it. The renewable energy that replaces it, hopefully, is almost by definition a little more spread out and decentralized and democratic, and I think helps move us in many good directions, including the one that you're getting at there.
Okay, just one more quick point. Perhaps, I feel the environmental movement needs to politicize more, take a stand on certain issues like the arms race. And you did mention a few times about China and Hong Kong. So in a sense, you did politicize your talk to a small degree, but you need to mention about the continuous arms race, I think, more, what's happening now, legal wars, like what happened in Iraq, the catastrophe now, what's happening over in the Middle East is a direct result of all this. So keep up the good work, but I think you need to unite with the arms race.
I got to tell you the truth. Which is I'm already overstretched. And we need a lot of people working on a lot of things. It would be folly to count on me to get very much. I have my hands full with Exxon and TransCanada. We'll keep working. We work across a lot of issues, and one of the beautiful things about this march in New York was that for the first time, there was a big contingent of people from the peace movement and a lot of people from the labor movement, and it was beautiful to see. But I just warn you not to count much on me. As you can tell, I'm a little worn out just doing what I'm doing.
Is what can or should individuals do to keep, probably to help in a practical way to change the carbon footprint? Now I say do, not talk about.
Well, here's what I think. You can answer that your own way, but I assume that most of you have done many of the things that are sort of obvious. Changed your light bulbs. Maybe like me, you've changed them twice. We went to contact fluorescence, and now we have LEDs everywhere. Maybe you eat lower on the food chain than you used to, which would be a good idea. Maybe you drive a Prius, or you take public transportation, or you ride a bike, or those are all important, good things, and things that I try to do. But I also try to tell them not to fool myself that those are actually stopping climate change. They're not. This is a structural and systemic problem. If we're going to solve it in the time that physics has given us, it's going to be a structural and systemic solution that will involve, above all, finally putting a price on carbon that reflects the damage it does in the atmosphere. Something that every economist, and that's a political act. That can only happen when we break the power of the fossil fuel industry to stop that kind of change. They understand that this is a political fight. That's why Chevron gave the largest single campaign contribution in American history 2 weeks before the last federal election to make sure the House stayed in the hands of climate deniers. It's why the Koch brothers, who are the biggest leaseholders in the Alberta tar sands, are also the biggest players in American politics. I guess the point I'm trying to make is the most important thing an individual can do is not be an individual. come together with other people and form a movement. I mean, the people from 350 Hamilton are right outside, ready to, sign you up and get you to work. Form a movement, because that's what's going to do it. It's not going to be done one of us at a time. If we had 100 years, that would be the way to do it, but we don't have 100 years, and so that informs the choices we need to make.
Is there any merit in retrieving carbon from the CO2 and returning it to the soil?
Well, of course there is. I mean, that's what trees in the ocean do, and one of the problems we're really worried about now is that their ability to do that seems to be breaking down some as we heat the planet. And there are some other ways to do it. There are ways in which we could change land use practices some to take somewhat more carbon out of the atmosphere, but the real problem is how much we're pouring in. It's like a bathtub. Yes, we can drain some through some of those ways, but since we've got the spigot wide open at the moment, it can't ever begin to catch up. If we did everything right from this point in terms of switching off fossil fuel, getting off it by about 2030 altogether, which is just at the outside utter realm of the kind of imaginable, then by the end of the century, forests and oceans should sequester enough carbon to get us back down below 350. There'll be a ton of damage done in the meantime, but maybe not the kind that wrecks civilizations. That's our hope anyway. So that's why, I mean, there's a million different ways to come at this, but that's why when we triage it, taking on the fossil fuel industry is job 1, 2, and 3.
The main problem with the barons, the oil and coal barons, is that they can buy political power,
Yes.
media power.
Yes.
Sun News had an expert on the climate and boo-hooed the whole climate thing entirely, laughed at the whole movement. And only in the media can we really make changes. But really, these barons buy political power. One of our elections was won on the basis of this. Do you think we can make a move and a change with these kinds of powers?
Well, I think it makes it harder, but I don't think there's any way around it. I mean, that means we have to work all the much harder, but that's almost always the case when people are trying to overthrow real entrenched elites and powerful people. Almost every moment in human history when that's happened, it's been in the face of that kind of opposition. There are two things that we have going in our favor now. One is that we can increasingly create our own media. So nobody wrote a story about that big day of action we did in 2009 before it happened. You know, we somehow managed to reach enough people through the things we can now do to get 5,200 places around the world people to go to work. And it's not because we went and visited each one, it's because we were good at using the tools we have. The second thing to bear in mind is that the most powerful media baron in the world, the greatest educator in the world, is Mother Nature. And she is doing every damn thing she can think of to break through and instill some common sense in us. And it's working. 80% of U.S. counties have had a federally declared disaster in the last 3 years. That's why the percentage of people who are worried about this stuff has ticked steadily up. I don't worry about the last 25% of people who are, stone climate deniers. You're never going to reach them. If you spent the last 30 years, marinating in Rush Limbaugh every day, you're not going to change your mind. I worry about the 70% of people who know what's going on, getting them active and engaged and fighting. If we can do that, no problem. If we can get even a fairly small subset of that active, then no problem. So yeah, it'd be a lot easier if Rupert Murdoch weren't around, but he is around, and you can't base strategy on kind of wishing him away. So we do what we can around him.
I've got a question on iron seeding. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
Yes.
So what do you think about that idea? Is it like basically seeding the oceans with iron? and then causing plankton bloom, which causes carbon sequestration and sinking into the ocean. And these types of approaches, do you think that that has merit? And do you think we could scale that up to a point where it could have an effect on
I think it's, personally, I mean, I've looked at all, and people were talking about this 25 years ago when I wrote The End of Nature. I think it's nuts. You know, if one's response to having, I mean, here we've conducted one uncontrolled experiment where we poured huge amounts of CO2 in the atmosphere, and our answer to it is not to stop conducting that experiment and let the air clear. It's instead to try and find some other experiment that we can carry on simultaneously in the hopes that, I mean, what results we have so far indicate that that one's impractical and that it's incredibly likely to come with, if you think about it, side effects on a scale as well. I mean, we're an ocean planet. You know, we've already made the water of the ocean 30% more acidic. The idea that we'd want to encourage vast plankton blooms across the whole, it just seems, I used to work at a homeless shelter, so I knew a lot of junkies, you know, and there's a kind of impeccable junkie logic that, you know, how they're going to solve their own existential crisis, not by quitting whatever they're on, but by winning the lottery, whatever it is, you know. Deciding we're going to like put great films of something in space to block the sun, or, I mean, that's sort of junky logic. I understand its appeal, and I think it's probably important that somebody keep researching it, because we may reach the point where it's a kind of break the glass moment and we have no choice but to try some stuff. But by God, the much smarter thing is to take what we know we can do, solar panels and windmills, and just do them, you know, on the scale that's required. That's the one that appeals to me.
Hi, Bill. Hi, Bill.
Hello there.
Are you Canadian or American?
I'm American.
Okay.
Vermonter. A subset.
The reason I'm here, you know, because, you know, I'm an activist myself, so I was in Burlington downtown last week, you know, and maybe only 20 people came over, you know, to demonstrate, you know, the global warming and stuff, and to walk downtown and to meet the mayor and stuff. And this old lady came over and she asked me this brochure about your name, you know, that you're going to give a lecture here. That's the reason I'm here too. So I don't really have a question, but just like, we've heard most of your speech is about like wash, rinse, and recycle. We've heard this many times. How come Canada didn't even participate at the UN lately, you know, about global warming?
Well, Canada is effectively, I mean, it's literally, but effectively shut itself out of being part of the global debate over climate change. I mean, the Canadian government. It can't in any way really take part in the ongoing conversation because its commitment to the tar sands means that it has no plausible way to cut emissions. And so that's an enormous shame. You know, Canada's a nation that traditionally that helps solve the world's problems, not create them. And we can't afford to have Canada and Australia I mean, it is, I gotta tell you, it is disconcerting for Americans to look north of the border and see a country doing an even worse job than we are dealing with this stuff. We're very used to the, you know, sort of thinking, well, at least Canada, you know, well, you know, he gets elected again, we'll go to Canada, you know, things like that. I mean, no kidding. We can't afford Canada to be a rogue nation. We just can't. So you guys have got some political work to do here that would help a great deal, you gotta say.
Okay, aside from the global warming, it's like, can you elaborate a little bit about what's going on lately in the world, like about Ebola and,
no,
you know, ISIS?
The only thing I know anything about worth talking about is climate change. This is the defect of having spent your life enmeshed in too much in one thing, and I'm very much looking forward to the day when I can go back and think more about other things like the stuff that I wrote about in Enough. But you know, I confess for the moment, the severity of this particular crisis grips me, and I think that it's by far the biggest thing that's ever happened to human beings, the biggest thing human beings have ever done. It's the only thing we've ever done that will affect the planet for many, many tens of millennia to come. The only alterations we've made in kind of geological time. And that's why it's so compelling to me. I think there's another question right behind you.
Did we take the moon landing?
You're way out of my area of expertise now.
I think it should be noted, though, that people who drive e-bikes and electric cars are living under a bit of delusion if they think that it's saving the climate. Because if their energy for charging the vehicle up is coming from a non-renewable source, coal, oil, gas-fired, then they're still hurting the environment.
Sure, and there's no, and all of us are hurting the environment. There is no way to live a life in the Western world that we inhabit and not pour an ungodly amount of carbon into the atmosphere, even if you're doing everything right. Just the infrastructure of the world around us, that's how it works. That's why, as I say, it's good to work on all the things you do close to home, but make most of your work about the structure that we're embedded in. If we can shift that, if we can get a price on carbon, if we can make markets work in the right direction, if we can do all those things. If you want to think more about this, I highly recommend Naomi Klein's new book, because she does a very good job of explaining just how embedded in the world around us this is.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, I'm just like, I wasn't sure. So first I just wanted to say that I'm a student at McMaster, and I'm actually here as part of my sustainability course, so the youth are trying to make a change, so don't give up on us yet, I swear.
Young people are leading this fight everywhere around the world. You can see that from those pictures.
Good, I'm glad. So my question is kind of cheesy, but like I kind of came here with hoping that I would have like some action item that I would do right after. So as a fourth-year business student, what one piece of advice would you want to give me?
Well, you gotta, I mean, as I've said now before, you've got to organize. That's what you got to do. So people often say, young people often say, what career should I go into, or what
I was
job?
literally going to mention them because I'm applying for jobs right now, and you know how many oil companies are hiring? All of them.
So a good thing to do would be not go to work for an oil company. But, the good news is that almost no matter what your field is, you can be of great use during the day, you know. If you're a psychologist or a theologian or a business person, maybe above all, the sort of need for powerful new entrepreneurial ventures to move us in new directions. But the real point is, what you do 9 to 5 is less important than what you do after hours and on weekends. We need you to be a citizen, to act as a citizen above all. And it's citizenship that we've fallen out of the habit of. And when I was saying that the goal is to bring these things into sort of democratic debate, that's exactly what I mean. And I'm so glad you raised it. And I think perhaps that's the note on which we should draw things to a close. Thank you all so much.
Thanks very much, Bill, for that great talk and for the splendid answers to those questions. I especially enjoyed what you had to say about citizenship at the end there. And I don't think anyone will leave here and easily forget that metaphor of humans exercising their democratic responsibilities as antibodies. I think it's a fabulous idea. So thank you very much, Bill. It was wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for coming.